Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Hello, and welcome to our new event from GDG Helwan and Kotlin K2 user group. Today, we are going to have Kotlin Conf event global, which is I'm going to start, and we are going to have 3 sessions. One of the sessions is going to be how to create Google Google I/O, how to calculate. How to create a compose iOS application, and we have a speaker from JetBrains, and the third is going to how to create a Jetpack Compose from scratch, and in it we are going to have a speaker from Palestine. Allow me to start. I will start now my slides. So my session today is going to be about Kotlin and Compose updates. Welcome, everyone. I am glad that you managed to attend to the meeting. Today is going to be our biggest meeting at all, that we are using multi-platforms to broadcast our stream. We are using today Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, beside, of course, YouTube. My name is Shady Selim. I've been a developer since 23 years, and for Android, I am developer since the last 13 years. I am the founder and leader of Google Developer Group Helwan chapter. And let's start with our event. First, we will learn about some of the updates of the Android Studio Flamingo, the latest one. In Flamingo, there are several updates. Among the biggest of them, that starting Flamingo, as you can see, we can use the latest EGP, which is EGP 8, which means that our application can be more compressed. It is going to be smaller. Besides, it is going to be better. And as also you can see that using EGP 8, we can only support till EGP 8 API 33. API 33 means Android 13. So we can use with the beta version Android 14, but it won't be that efficient, and we might find a lot of bugs. If we want to, of course, to try Android 14 beta, we can also try the Android Studio beta. So what's new in Flamingo? Now we can have themed app icons. When we started with the Material 3 about 2 years ago with Android 12, we thought that even icons can depend on the themed or on the profile colors that we select. So it can be part of the system. But we didn't know how to test it. But now with Android Flamingo, we can test it actually in our Android Studio before publishing the application. Also, dynamic colors. From Android Studio, we can try a black or dark theme and light theme, and also we can try different colors that we suppose it might be the native colors of the device, and see how it will look in our application and if it is acceptable or not. Other updates. Live edit. Now, we of course you know that Android Studio does save our changes by only writing. Whenever we stop writing, our changes is being saved on the device and in our code. But now they do offer us another feature that we can go to preference and change it to manual. So whenever we want to do any change, we can just use Command S or Control S if you are using Windows. So we can save our changes manually. And by doing that, it's going to build and update the UI layout inspector only after we use or after we click Command S or Control S. So we can control when our layout is going to be updated and when we are going to save all our changes. Compose tracing. Now, this is a new feature which compose functions are actually being recomposed. We can now understand which composables are being composed by using this compose tracing tool. It's a new tool that can show us a graph for the timeline of our application and which compose has been created and which has been recomposed or recreated. Of course, if you are using Jetpack Compose, which is, we must start from today, and we understand why. Update to the project templates. Compose Material 3 templates are the new default. With Flamingo, if we selected a new project and we selected any new project, we will find out that this new project is going to be composed and in Material 3. So it does have the two benefits, which is Material 3 plus it is in Compose. This is the default. Of course, if you want to create XML layout, it is you can do that inside your application. Create all your layouts that you need. But what I'm saying that it is now the default settings. Device mirroring, which was one of the difficult problems that if I want to use an emulator, yes, starting for 2 or 3 years ago, I can now see my emulation or my emulator inside the Android Studio after it was outside the Android Studio, and I have to navigate between them. What's new is now my own device, which is my real device. I can now mirror it inside the Android Studio, which means that I don't have to hold the device on my hand and start and code and see whenever I want to see the changes. I've got to hold the device. No, it's now going to be part of my Android Studio, exactly like the emulation is doing. Besides that, there was another tools, third-party tools like Visor that we use as developers to mirror our device inside our laptops. But now, as I said, you can natively use this mirroring feature. And of course, it is going to give you more control of your device. Like, for example, logging is going to be much better because it is using the default Android Studio tool. Updates to network inspector traffic interceptions. So of course we can log our network calls inside our application. If you are the one who code or who created this application, and we are making internet connection or calls or requests, we can see the request, and also we can see the responses of this request in our logs. But now the Android Studio is giving us more power that we can modify headers. We will not only see, but using the network inspector traffic interception, we can intercept our calls and also our responses. So we can make some modification on our responses. We can try other features, like for example, the response always returns success with 200 because the server is live. I want the server to return 4 or 5, but it won't because it's working fine. So I can intercept this response, and I can modify the response to understand and see how my application is going to react. Modify responses and also modify headers. If I want to add something to the header, if I want to remove something from the header, and see how it will affect my application. Of course, I know how it will affect. I am only testing it if my application is working fine or not. And also with Android Studio Flamingo, now JDK 17 is being bundled. Of course, I can still work with using JDK 11, but 17 will give me more power and more features and more capabilities. and so I can start using it from today. But if I'm using or working on an old application, no problem. I can still continue in Android in GDK 11 and try to upgrade it to GDK 17 safely. So it is not a must. But for a new project, yes, it will give you a lot of benefits and a lot of features. Android 14 Beta 1 is out, and now also Beta 2 is out. So we can test Android 14, see what's new in Android 14, but of course we will jump this Flamingo and we'll use the current beta version to understand exactly what is in our what's new and how we can use it. What's new in Android 14? It gives us a lot of features, like for example, it's built of course of Android 12, but it gives us more animation, more control for the animation. Now the bottom sheet, we can add actions actually to the bottom sheet that we can do. For example, if it is a chat application, we can select from the bottom sheet which person that we do normally respond or reply to. We can use this person to have a short or a fast selection that this message is going, or this file or this image is going to be shared with those lastly shared with persons. Or we can add another action, like for example, modifying an image before sending it. So it can be a fast action that we can do using the bottom sheet before applying or doing any action. Select team generously open source their circuit library. It's not actually a library, it's more like a framework. It's more like a startup kit that new developers or developers can use to create Compose-driven architect. So it was built by Compose for Compose, from down up or ground up, which means that they were thinking in Compose, not in Kotlin, not in Java, while they were creating this framework to make sure that it will work perfectly. And it is going to be composables, and it from day zero. And there will be nothing strange on the logic or even the framework or the architect that they are using. So it is a simple, lightweight. It is still a beta, but they are using it in Slack. So I believe we can use it. And of course, we all know what is Slack company and how many people does connect to this Slack application per second, not per minute. So if the application can hold all this connection and all this effort and all this background, and it is still light in if you test it in your mobile and is now in Compose, that might give you some trust to try and have a look on this new circuit that been open sourced for us to try. And of course they didn't only open source it for us to try, but also to be part of fixing some bugs or adding some features or proposing some features to this Slack application. Android officially architect updated. By the way, Circuit is based on UDF architect, which is unidirectional flow. And this is what now you can find it in the Android developer.android.com official statements in their architecture, that they are now describing in UI layer to use UDF as our new architect pattern. So they are now moving from MVVM to the UDF. And why is that? Because it's they are now more depending on Compose, as I just mentioned, that starting from Flamingo, the current stable Android studio, it is by default our application in Compose, and the Android team are working heavily in Compose. Compose is managed and developed by the Android team inside Google, while Kotlin multi-platform is being updated and managed by the JetBrains, which is the company that did create Kotlin and the company that is now creating and working on JetBrains IDE, which is the core of Android Studio. So Android Studio is JetBrains IDE with a flavor created especially for the Android for the Android developers and published by the Android team. The new feature, I did spoke about it last year and in different sessions, but there is something new that we can add. That now Figma does support converting its designs to compose by using Relay. Relay is a plugin that can be installed in Figma and can be used to easily convert directly our Figma into Compose using Android Studio. So we can just import it. It won't create it as a code, and we do have to copy it from Figma. No, we can just import it. Whatever the changes is going to be done on the Figma, we can also update only the changes in our application instantly. So it is going, as you can see, by using mappers. You can see that they are now both connected. And what's new is that now officially Google had created a code lab on codelabsdevelopers.google.com Relay complete app. You can use a complete app and try how firsthand how you can use Figma and convert your UI. Of course, you need to make some changes and some configurations, especially download this plugin, and then convert your UI to your Android Studio. Of course, you did notice that in Google I/O, they were focusing on AI, and actually it's been mentioned about 194 times. And one of the also good news that BARD had been updated. I did try BARD, which was a competitor for ChatGPT created inside Google before the Google I/O. I did try BARD before the Google I/O. It was very poor in performance, and it didn't give the exact results that I did expect. During Google I/O, they updated BARD to use now Plum 2, which is the new neural framework that they created also inside Google, and it became much better, much better. It's been better in different levels and in different ways. And just this week, they also updated BARD, so now it can return results in images, not only in text. Of course, you might ask, why ChatGPT might be important for me as a developer? Is it going to be a competitor for me as a developer? Even for those who did try ChatGPT, I want to assure you that no, it is not going to be a competitor. It might be a sidekick or might be assistant for you, like a copilot on GitHub. So it can help you, but it will never replace you, either now or in the near future. And there is going to be an article that I am going to share my experience for creating an application using BARD and using ChatGPT, and how it still depends on us as the developer to create the application, and we can't only solely depend on this AI now or in the foreseen future, as far as I can see. Let's try to see this video. I believe this is going to be fun.
It uses AI to bring AI, generative AI, AI as AI. It uses AI to bring AI.
So yes, as you can see, they did use the word AI a lot. Okay, now we talk about Bard and we talk also about GPT. And what's new? The Studio Boot. Using Studio Boot inside Android Studio, which is not in the current Flamingo, it's going to be in the next beta. It's now in the next beta, and is going to be. They said around 2004 we can use it fully in our application. What can Studio Boot do? Unfortunately, it's only now working in US, and I'm not sure it has been opened in other countries yet. But I believe it will take a while because, as I mentioned, it's still in beta. They are still testing it. Developers that did try it, they didn't find it very exciting, but they might use it in a wrong way. They might try to use a Studio Boot to create, and as also I did understood that they did try to use Studio Boot to create a real application, but a Studio Boot is not for that. Studio Boot is for ask a specific questions, and it can reply with good. According to the Google standards and the Google documentation and the Google help, it is going to provide a good samples and a good answers using code samples that we can, as you can see. Yes, it is very negative, as I mentioned, because they are using it in the wrong way. Uh, as I mentioned, they were trying to create a whole classes using Studio Boot, and it's not ready for that yet. You can only ask it how to implement Android X camera X inside Android Studio. It can provide you with the code, and you can just click on add, and it will be added to where you are standing in the Android Studio, or you can try it on the playground. So it will open a playground and will put the code in it, and you can try it there. So actually, it is going to help you finding a good answer and add this answer to your application or to your code, but not to create. It is going to be answers, not to create a whole class. It's going to be short answers for limited actions. You can also, as you can see in the other screen, open the documentation. So you can ask about camera X and then click open documentation. You can open the documentation in a bigger window. So it is going to be like a search, a help, but it is an updated search and updated help. Of course, not like ChatGPT that might try to create an application, but even though it's not a good application according to my standards. And as I mentioned, I'm going to create an article exactly for that matter. The news updated Kotlin compiler K2. K2 is announced that is going to be used when Kotlin reach version 2, hopefully by 2024, as they said, and it's going to be integrated in the Android Studio also by 2024. What is good in K2? What is not good in K2? they said that it improve the build and compiler time according to what they mentioned 2x or 2 times. So it is going to be faster in compiling, faster in working, and it is going to be even less code as far as I saw in the reviews and on their demos. The code has been direct to the point, and even what we thought that it wasn't a boilerplate, they thought it is going to be boilerplate. So Kotlin is going to be cleaned and is going to be even shorter and even faster, either in writing or even in compilation. Capped to KSP, which is also something very important to know, that capped does depend on Java. So to avoid passing through Java when processing annotation, which hence cause some delay in our compilation and even on our working application in runtime. So a KSP is built from ground using pure Kotlin. So it is going to be much faster. That's why now they announced and they are trying to help us to replace all our capped annotations, Kotlin annotations, inside our application to use KSP as the new standard of annotations. It will minimize the build time. Believe me, you will notice it from day one if you converted a medium size or a big application from capped to XP. It is going to be the build time is going to be minimized radically. Jetpack multi-platforms APIs. So that was also new, that and it was also introduced that the Jetpack team added multi-platform libraries, which was the first time, because as I mentioned, that the Kotlin multi-platform is the responsibility of the JetBrains team. So the Android team was not working on multi-platform. But now, as I am speaking, they are working on Compose multi-platform, which is going to be part of our next 2 topics. Please stay and see these topics. So they created these multi-platform APIs. So, we can now have data store for multi-platform, annotations for multi-platform, and even collections for multi-platform. Trying to do collection, it wasn't an easy story, and we used to go to third-party providers, which were not that bad actually, but we need to understand exactly what is the pros and what is the cons of each library or on which behavior you are going to use. Among them, the best I believe came from a company in the US which is creating the application for Square company. And of course, this library is still in alpha state. I believe they will be in stable state when Compose multi-platform will also be in stable state, or even earlier, because this is the beautiful thing about Jetpack libraries, that they are independent. So each team is working on a library and update it according to its new level of stability, not depending on other libraries to be stable, so they can publish their own. Other updates that we can talk, for example, per app language preferences, which was introduced in Android 13, that using Android 13, if you want to use an application in a different language than other applications, which was impossible before, we have to go to our mobile preference or settings and change the language, and all applications are going to change to this language. Actually, that was a problem for me. I will tell you that story. I was working on application. This application, we was implementing the Japanese language. So I converted my device to Japanese. And the problem is in settings, Japanese items are not in the same order like in English or in Arabic. So I didn't knew how to replace it back. I test my application and it was a success. And I proved that the application is working in Japanese fluently, but I couldn't convert it back to English. So I went and made some search on the internet how to change settings in Japanese for Android. And only one article after about for 15 minutes I did found that helped me through the characters. Of course, I don't understand Japanese, but through the characters that been drawn as a screen, I use these characters to convert my application back to English. So that was problematic for me as a developer. But it's not only for development, but if I'm using application for finance, for example, banking, for example, to check my bank account. So some does like to have this information in Arabic, in plain Arabic, to be understand exactly what's happening. It's money, people. It's not something to play with. But Slack and their email, it can be in English. Money is something different. It must be in native language, for example. So they can't convert this or change this application language only while the other applications are still in English. And that was introduced in Android 13. But it was hard to test in the Android Studio. Till the latest version now, we can now test app language preferences. Kotlin DSL and version catalog. Now, also we can, the new application, it is going to be created by default in Kotlin DSL. Of course, as you do understand that the Gradle is created in Groovy, if you do have this information, and some of your code might be written in Java. So now actually you do have 3 compilers, one for Kotlin for your codes and your classes, one for Java for the Java codes that still exist and also for the cat, and one for the build Gradle files, which is built in Groovy. So you do also have a Groovy compiler. That's why your build might be slowish. But to improve its speed, you need to have all your application in Kotlin. It's going to be much, much better. So now, by default, your application, your new application is going to be in Kotlin DSL. New Compose support TV in alpha, minimum supported. So now we can try Android for TV inside the Android Studio. Minimum supported Android should be Android 6. So this is the latest or the minimum Android TV version that we can try our application on it. Many security and permission changes. Yes, of course, with every new change, there is updates in security and permissions. And there is a lot of updates actually in Android 14. They tighten security a lot, which is much, much better. Better support for big screens and foldables. Yes. There was a problem that it is very expensive to buy a foldable. So it is very difficult to test on a foldable. But now, using Android Studio, we can have emulators for foldables, and not only for foldables, also for big screens like tablets. So we can test directly in our Android Studio without buying these expensive devices to test on. And even if our team did buy one, they can buy for every developer. So it is going to be rotated among us. So it is much, much better for fast testing to have our own emulators, which is now exist. Plus online testing emulators, which is a new concept that if you want to test on a real device for something like, for example, you want to pass or to test Bluetooth, which is difficult to test on emulator. That's why you can test on a real device. So there are now online testing emulators that you can borrow and test your device on. Actually, in the 19th, by the new century, Nokia did had their own farm for testing devices that you can borrow these devices and test your application online. But it was difficult to do that for Android and even iOS. But now, yes, you can. Vitals can be monitored from the IDE directly. You can now, from your own IDE, you can see the vitals. You don't have to visit your Play Store console, developer console, to know the vitals of your application. You can get all the info inside the Android Studio. So the last year, there was an integration with Firebase, and this year there is integration with the Play Store. Split screens and continuity new libraries. So now we can split our application, like as I mentioned in foldables, we can split our application and test how our application can work on split screens. And not only that, we can test our application with continuity. What is continuity? Whenever you are opening or closing your mobile, there are actually 3 screens in these foldables. There are 2 screens in front of each other. Besides, there are the screen whenever you are going to close your device, there is an outside screen. So there are 3 screens. So continuity, which means if I'm working on an application and closed my foldables device, my application is going to continue and is going to be deployed and is on the 3rd screen, which this is the continuity, which is now we can test it using our new emulators. And also there are no libraries. There are no libraries especially for that, for our development. So we can create our application to support this feature. We don't have to create it in C++ like we used to. Wear OS 4. There are so much updates now on our Wear OS, which is now being created in collaboration between Google and Samsung, because they have a very big broadened experience using their Samsung watches. So they gathered a lot of feedback from the users, what should be done and what should be done and how to make it easier and friendly to use in watches. So with their collaboration, we now have an updated Wear OS 4. And also in our last Google I/O, they announced the new Pixel watch. Better handling for the back button, so application won't be closed. So whenever we click back, our application is not to be closed anymore. The life cycle has been changed, and we still have the application on the background. What I mean by life cycle is the Android default life cycle. If you are a developer, of course, you understand what I do mean. Small Plum 2 version to be used from the mobile. So we did have TensorFlow, light TensorFlow, if we do recall, a few years back in 2017. We had the light TensorFlow, and we was able to use it inside our devices, and now we can use Small Plum 2 inside our devices for machine learning and deep learning. And it can do all and everything that we want inside the device. We won't sacrifice our users' security by taking their information outside of their device. We can have our models and work on it and create and get the result and show them the result for their data inside their application without using internet at all. New media and camera updates to work with Media 3. So Media 3 is is updated, and we now can use it directly using the camera and new media, which is a very good improved thing. Media 3 library with better HDR capture and play. Yes, and that's also a new update, that now we can, using Media 3, capture images in high definition, in HDR, in high definition resolution, and also play the images back. So we'll not only capture using the camera, But media can also play this HDR back using our native Jetback library, not a third-party library or compression. Now we are thinking, I want to use a compose component. How can and I am new to compose. So how can I search for these components and use it in my application? I can tell you that there is composables.com slash components. You can search for your component, and there are some paid component, which is the advanced component, but there are the default components that you can just hover it and click copy, and you just paste it in your application. Whatever there are, for example, in the samples that I had a button which is different shapes, so you can just hover on one of these shapes, and you will find a button to copy. Just click on it; it will be copied to your board, and then just directly paste it in your Android Studio, and you will have it ready to continue working with it. But you might think that it is a lot of steps to do just an easy thing that is should be easy, right? Yesterday, remember you heard it first. Yesterday, we had Compose Hammer. It is a new plugin approved by JetBrains just yesterday. This plugin can work easily as an IntelliSense, just out of the box. You can just write, and you can add composable elements using this Compose Hammer inside your application, and you can preview it directly inside your application. And you can also find the documentation inside your Android Studio, because this is an JetBrains plugin. But did we really understood how we can use it? If we don't, okay, let's see it by ourselves. Okay, I was on the other screen.
I'm here to present you Compose Hammer. Compose Hammer is a modern UI toolkit that implements more than 59 material view components and contains material tree stuff that you see in modern apps. So basically, Compose Hammer is so slick that even turns Mjolnir will get envy, and you'll see why in a while. So after you install the plugin, a wild blue hammer will appear on your right sidebar in Android Studio.
Okay, as you can see, by using this Compose Hammer, it's been added to our sidebar. We can just open to see different implementations. For example, here we saw buttons and things, and we can also see cards, which is more complex thing to do. And how we can add it? You can see that there is the design, and below it you can find the code. You can just copy the code and copy the libraries that will be needed. And actually, that was a boomer for some of the Compose developers, that they try to apply these composables elements, and when they are adding these composable elements, and they are requesting to add some libraries, and they are confused. Which libraries should I add? I'm new to Compose. I don't know exactly which should I select. That's why using Hammer, you can have these libraries directly, so you don't have to think which you need to add. You can add your composables like here. He adds these composables, and also there is an example, an advanced example. So this is a sample composable. You can add it directly. There's also another example, and here you can find the IntelliSense. As you saw, you just add a spacer with no effort at all. It was added directly, so you only need to push the space bar, and you will find this drop down menu with all these options that you can just add it directly without even going to copy and paste. And here he's going to start an application from scratch. Nothing is here. Okay. And it's not only UI composables. You can add remember by and other compose needed functions directly using this compose hammer. Whew. In a few seconds, he did create a compose class. He created from scratch. He didn't have to go and search how to add these elements and what's needed to be added. And even some composables did came with their own remember, because they knew that it is actionable. It needs an action. So it needs an action. So there are some variables that need to be remembered. And yes, for example, in here. It came up with its own modifier with everything. Here's the remember. He created a UI. Okay. Okay, Samia, which links exactly are you requesting? I can share whatever you would like. I didn't catch your question, so if you can tell me, I can share it. Of course, this video it is on YouTube. You can return to it at any time, and you will find all the links that you'll need on this video. So as I mentioned, Compose Hammer is going to boom our Compose creations and our new Compose applications. So I advise you to try it from today. It's still in alpha, but as you can see, you won't. It doesn't do anything drastically that might break your application at all. It's only add some code that you can modify. Please share your feedback to help us understand your experience. The Compose Hammer link, please. Okay. I can do that, but it will take some time. I will add it by the end, but now allow me to share the survey link. This is the survey link. and I will send it to all of you. And for our coming session, please don't forget that we also have a beautiful session, and this is the URL, and its title is Compose multi-platform on iOS. I will also add the link for the next session for you, so it will be easier for you to follow. And right now, for the questions with the prices, mention 2 new things that been introduced in Flamingo. This is the first question. The second question is how we can test our application in foldables. There is a new libraries, 2 new libraries. Please mention them. We do have cool prices like T-shirts and pens and also prices with a value of $169 US. So please contribute, please answer, so we can share these prices. I'm trying now to get the URL. Okay. That you ask for Hammer, and I will share it also in the comments. Okay, new Flamingo features are new UI of the IDE and automatic per app language support. Actually, the new UI is not in Flamingo, but yes, it is going to be booming. The new UI is something like Visual Studio Code. It is very clean, give more space for coding, but it won't be implemented in Flamingo. But the other part of your answer is correct, that automatic per app language support is now added in the new Android Studio. Compose Hammer is not free. I'm not sure about that. I didn't. It was just sent yesterday and approved yesterday. It is going to be Compose and Inventory. Yes, Samir, you are completely right. In new Compose, new project Flamingo, our new applications is going to be in Compose and in Material 3. So I need to jump now, so we can have 1 minute or 2 as a break before joining our next session. See you. It's going to start on 1 minute. See you there. Have a nice day.